So this is another snap video update on Armadale Capital, who today released their interims, and interestingly enough, they've swung to a small profit. But probably more important than that, they announced a strategic financing. And I was going through the RNS earlier, and essentially it's a £500,000 raise to new and existing investors. And the details of the RNS state that the project financing itself is now enough funding for the company to run through to project financing and construction. So this is great news, because I think this is something that perhaps might have been detracting a few people from looking at the company, thinking that some massive discounted raise was coming. Well, actually, surprisingly enough, they actually raised at a premium at 1.8p, which is probably about over 10% premium to the prevailing share price, and interestingly, upwards of 64% increase on the last 1.1p raise they did back in February. And the interesting thing to note here is the company are keeping the raises tight. They don't want to perform massive dilution. They already, with the 1.1p raise, were offered more by the broker than they actually took, and this is really good, because I think the company obviously realised they're entering a phase of transformational news flow, and as such, the re-rating should occur. And why should that happen at current shareholders' expense? So this is a good raise. It sees them through. They're fully funded. Noting also they've got this existing loan facility that is mentioned in previous RNSs. So the company are well placed financing wise, and that really sets the scene now for us going into news flow over the remainder of the year. And I've been delving deep into this company and doing a lot of research, and there's a couple of key things that I've highlighted in previous videos but are really interesting me now about this project. And if you look at the recent RNS, I think it was on the 11th September, they announced a mineral resource update, which was nearing completion. Now, some people, this might be quite boring, but for me, it wasn't boring at all, because what they're going to get out of this is a JORC compliant mineral resource, and they're focusing on a 10 to 15 year mine life of the 32-year mine life that they previously established. And the reason it seems that they're doing this is because of the grades that they've been getting, which have been extremely high, well over the initial 9.3% target graphite content that they were originally looking at. And as such, if they can define a JORC resource around these grades, then they can factor that into the DFS, like similar companies like Walkabout Resources, and processing the higher grades over the early years of the overall project. Remember, this is just there's a 32-year mine life based on 25% of the resource, so that could be up to over 100 years mine life. However, they're focusing on the 10 to 15 year at the higher grades, which is very good. And basically what they're saying is that they're close to that JORC resource. So I should imagine we can expect that to be coming in the coming weeks or months in towards the DFS. So that's good news also. And these drill results here did actually build upon previous assays that they'd reported, again of the same similar high grades. One thing I wanted to draw your attention to is Walkabout Resources, who are a company that are also listed on the ASX, and they've got a very similar project to Armadale in terms of economics, and they're a good comparison to make. In fact, BlackRock Mining, who are another company, are probably a better comparison to make in terms of the actual resource itself. But in terms of economics and stage and the model, if you like, Walkabout might be a better one for us to look at quickly now. And the thing I wanted to point out here is that Walkabout Resources will base their DFS on basket prices they will be getting for 95% purity graphite concentrate product. And in fact, that's what Armadale have done in their scoping study. However, if you saw the RNS recently where they reported the purities, they were reporting here in the large and medium flake categories up to 97%, 97.1% target grade content purity. And if you look at these numbers here, you'll see that that accounts for about 43% of the resource, which is significant. So it's essentially half the resource at 97%. This is much higher purity than Walkabout have modelled, and as such will attract premium prices over and above those using the scoping study. So one can infer now here that if over half your product, or if half of your product is now in the much higher purity region, then your economics should be improving. So this is why I think the scoping study, which is already a fantastic numbers, 350 million NPV and 35 million capex, could be trumped significantly by the DFS. And just to touch on Walkabout resources then, which I was looking at today, they've actually had a 36% share price increase today. Doesn't seem to be related to any specific news, but it is, I think, pretty much a bounce back in terms of perhaps the market reacting to the previous drop that it's had. However, the market cap of the company is now 50 million sterling. And Walkabout resources are probably, I would say, around about 6 to 12 months ahead of Armadale Capital in terms of where they are. So they've delivered their DFS, they've modelled that, and they've also signed a binding offtake agreement. These are all things that Armadale will be expecting to do in the coming 6 months to 12 months. I would actually think that Armadale would be looking to, their DFS is due at the end of the year. I would be thinking they could secure binding offtakes before that or post that. So lots to come, but the interesting thing there is the market cap of Walkabout, given that they've actually got a lower purity product and their economics are similar to Armadale's existing scoping study. Pretty much the numbers in terms of capex are the same and the NPV report are the same, but we've got the higher purities. So and obviously they reported the higher grades recently. So it'd be interesting to look at the JORC resource, which should be coming very soon, because they've done all the assays now. And alongside that, we'll be looking at binding offtakes, the DFS coming, mining license as well should be on the way. So all in all, some really good news coming out of Armadale, fully financed now. Lots of potentially re-rating news flow coming over the coming weeks and months, and which should lead, by all sort of in terms of peer comparison, a significant re-rate in the company to somewhere where Walkabout are at the moment, which is an equivalent share price of around 10 pence per share once they've delivered the DFS and binding offtake. So it's an opportunity I feel that is potentially there for investors following today's news.